Hey guys, we are back. So now at this point, you should have your virtualized environment set up. You should have Kali Linux loaded up, and that'll give you all the tools that you're going to need to do your ethical hacking. Now, you're going to need some kind of vulnerable environment so you can test these tools and kind of build your skill set, right? So the first thing we're going to install and work on is called Damn Vulnerable Web Application. And we're going to do this in two phases. So um, back in the day, when you used a Linux environment, it was very much command based, right? And this was like 10 years ago. Now they've come a long way, and a lot of the stuff that you can do in Windows, you can do in Linux. But back then, it was all command based through the terminal. So we're gonna teach you that, and then you are gonna hate me for this, but you are gonna learn something from this. And as you're using some of these more complex tools within Kali Linux, you are gonna have to use some of these commands. So sorry, but this will help you. So first things first, right? We want the damn vulnerable web application. So I'm gonna simply open it up and I'm gonna go to that website. So I had previously opened it. So I simply right clicked on it and then went to this all windows thing. Think of this as the tabs in Firefox or something, right? So it just shows up here. So I put a damn vulnerable web application in the URL in the search box. Right up front, you have the overall website. Here you can learn about it, read about it. But over here, the second one is where you can go to actually download it. Now, you can truly download it, go there, click this link, download it, put it wherever you want, as you would in a Windows environment, and then run through it. But we're going to do it a different way. We're going to do it through the terminal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a terminal window. And as soon as that thing opens up, we're going to say, hey, you know what? Go to this website, which we just copied from there, and download this thing for me. So you're going to do git clone, and then just simply put the URL in. Okay? Now, again, remember what I said. You can download it, you can extract it, you can save it wherever you want. But look at this. This thing took care of that. Right? But you know what? We're going to go one step further. We're going to say, you know what? Download it, but put it on the desktop. So CD desktop. Okay? Now it's on the desktop folder. Because I'm lazy, I don't want to go and find this thing. And now we're going to do it again. Git clone. And paste it. Okay? And you'll see that it popped up over here right away. So, I was not kidding when I told you that I'm lazy. The DVWA in caps is different from DVWA in lowercase when it comes to this environment. So just so I don't have to go back and forth between caps and not, we're just gonna change this. We're gonna say move DVWA, DVWA, and we're gonna call it DVWA lowercase. Okay, now as soon as I hit enter, you'll see that the folder over here is gonna change. So now it's lowercase. See that? So we've downloaded this damn vulnerable web application on our desktop, and now we need to figure out where do we put it. So in order for you to do that, you need two things. You need to first of all figure out what are you going to use to run it. In our case, we're going to use Apache. And secondly, where do you need to put it so Apache can read it? So what we're going to do is we're going to open up a folder structure to figure out where does Apache want me to put it for it to run properly. So this has opened up. You're going to go to other locations down here. This will start taking you towards the root. Hit computer. Apache resides in etc, Apache 2, sites enabled, and this default configuration file. So here's your Apache thing. This is what it's telling me, okay? Go down to the document root. It's saying that I will run your files as long as they're in this folder. So let's kind of navigate to that folder. So again, other locations, computer, It's telling me go to var www html. Okay, so right now the folder is empty. In your case, with the default installation, there might be 2 files in there. You could get rid of those, but it's telling me over here that it needs to be in there. So let's take your damn vulnerable web application and let's put it in there. Okay, so the way we're going to do that is let's go there. So cd var. Oh, we can't do uppercase. It's going to hate me if I do that. Oh, look at that. There's no file or directory. And the reason it's doing that is because we haven't put it there. So let's move it first. So DVWA, and let's move it to var www html. Okay, done. Now if I go back to my desktop, you are not going to see this file here anymore because it's been moved. See, it's gone. Okay, now let's go to that folder and make sure it's there. So we're going to do cd var www html dvwa. Now I'm in that folder. Now if I do ls, which is the list function, it's going to show me everything that's in there. Okay, so we've downloaded it, we've transferred it to the right folder, and now you're going to have to do something. Actually, you know what? I'll show you how to do this. Okay, so let's do Apache 2 service Apache 2 start. So we're basically saying, hey, Apache, I know you're on this machine. Why don't you go ahead and get started, okay? And then we have to go and test if it's going to work. 127. What's home, right? 001. That's home, right? So we're going to do that. And then we know it's in the DVWA folder. And then let's do index.php. And that's not working, right? It's saying the configuration file isn't right. I can't find it. But the interesting thing about this is if I minimize this, let's go back to that folder. And you're probably wondering, why is he doing index.php? Because it's one of the files. Actually, you know what? Better yet, let's do it this way. We're going to say list again, which is ls. And you're probably wondering, here's index.php. That's the one I was trying to run, right? But when you look in here, they also have something in here called robots.txt. So if I go back to that terminal, go back to my browser, and I change this to robots.txt, you'll see that one worked. PHP didn't work, but robots.txt worked, right? So a text file is reading perfectly. It's not reading the PHP file. So what we need to do is we need to change something here. We need to go to the config. Now look up here, right? There's a folder called config. So I'm going to do cd config, which is basically saying take me into that folder. And what's it doing here? There we go. So we're in that folder now. Now I'm going to hit list. Now, the file in there, the configuration file, is called config.inc.php.dist. In order for you to be able to run PHP here, you need to change that file to not be a .dist. It needs to be a PHP file for it to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this, and we're going to say take this config.inc.php.dist file, and we're going to make it a config. Oops, sorry, I'm supposed to be using dots here. These are not folders. This is a file. Okay, so now we're going to say take this and call it config.inc.php. Okay, So I want to open it up in here so you could see it happening as I do it. Okay, so it's the DST file, right? And I put in this code over here. And now as soon as I hit enter, you'll see that now it's a PHP file. Now, when I try to run it through the browser, it'll work. All Windows. Index.php. And there you go. Okay? So, what do we do here? We started Apache. We changed the configuration file up so that it can work with PHP. And now you've got this thing up and running. So, now that you're over here, there are a couple of things that you need to do. You're going to look down here and it'll give you the error codes down here. So the first thing it's telling me is that it's unable to connect to the database. And the reason why it's unable to connect to the database is because we haven't started the service for MySQL yet. So I'm going to minimize this, and same exact thing to start the service for MySQL. Going to do service, MySQL, start. Okay, so it's working on that right now. Now, in the event that you're not sure if something is running or if it's not running and you just want to make sure, I'll show you the next command here that'll show you how to check the status of anything that you're running. So it went ahead and did that. Now, let's make sure that Apache 2 is running. Service Apache 2 status. And you'll see up here it says active and running. Okay? Now I'm going to hit Control C so we can move on. And Control C kind of brings you back to the command line. Now that we know that the server is running, let's make sure the database is running. And how do I do that? I'm hoping that you're yelling this out as an answer. So service, MySQL, status. And over here as well, active and running. Okay? So we know everything is working fine. So let's go back to your terminal and see what happens now. So remember it was saying unable to connect to the database. That was because the database was not running. Now it is running. So now it's going to give you the option. Hey, do you want to go ahead and create the database so we can get going here? And I'm going to say yes. Let's get the ball rolling. And of course, we have another error. Okay? So there are two errors here. But at the end of the day, there's one root cause and one thing that we're going to fix. Number one is saying that it could not connect to the MySQL service. Check the config file. And your database is root. If you're using the MariaDB, which we are, then this will not work. So we need to do a couple of changes here. So I'm going to walk you through that, okay? So what this is saying basically is you're using root as your user and it doesn't want you to do that. So we need to create a new account and we'll call it something else. We'll give it root privileges and then that way we bypass this issue. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to minimize this window someday. And back over here again, we're going to do, how do we do this again? So MySQL. Okay, that takes you into the database. And over here, it shows that we're using MariaDB. But we're going to say, okay, MariaDB, I want you to use MySQL, right? And now you'll see that it says none up here. But as soon as I did that, it changed the database to MySQL. Now we're going to create a user, and let's just call it root2, okay? And we're going to say identified by password. And you're going to close it with this colon, this semicolon. Okay? And now the next thing is we're going to say, you know what? Grant all the privileges to this account. So grant all privileges on to root2, semicolon again. Okay. Now we're gonna update user set plugin equals that, where user equals root. So we're tying it back to that root account. Now let's flush privileges. Okay. And now we need to go to the configuration file. So what we're gonna do, DVWA config. So we can close this out. I'm gonna hit Control C, and that gets me out of here and aborts everything. Okay, but all the changes have been done. So we're already in the config file. Let's go to ls. We know that this file is sitting there, right? Remember, this is the file that was the .dist. We changed it. Now let's open this thing up because we're gonna have to put the new username and password in here. So I want to say leafpad, which is like a text editor. Config.inc.php, and simply what this is going to do is it's going to open up that file so we can go in there and make the modifications. Okay, so remember this. This should look familiar to you. We looked at this before. This is what will tell us. Oh, actually, we haven't looked at this one. Okay, so this is the way your database is going to be set up, and we're going to change this, and we're going to say root2. And if you remember, we made the password. Okay, so I'm going to save it, and I'm going to close it. Okay, so create root2, which is the username, and this is the password. And that's simply what I put in there. Okay, now let's try and go back here. So all the errors that we've seen thus far, we've kind of worked through. So now if I hit the create the database button, it'll work. Because of my slow computer, the button might not work, but the function behind it will work. There it goes. So as soon as I hit that button, it created the database in the back end and it started working. So we need to log in, and the default username and password for Damn Vulnerable Web Application is going to be admin and password. So admin and password, these are pretty bad, pretty common, right? I mean, hey, that's why this is a damn vulnerable web application. So you could remember it if you want, but for the sake of this video, I won't. Okay, so we're in. Congratulations, you set it up. I'm extremely proud of you. My little boy and girl is growing up. So now that you're in here, you've got all these different things that we're going to be working with at some point down the road. One of the first things I want to kind of share with you here is it has something in here called DVWA security. And this is why I like this application so much. So DVWA security comes with 4 different security levels. Okay. As you're working your way through this, you want to start with low, and it's just bad coding practices, really easy to exploit. You're going to be doing some of these exercises and be like, that's it? And it really is it. But once you've kind of gone through and fully understood how to do everything at the low level, work your way up to medium, high, and then impossible, and then when you go out to these external websites to do hacking, you will be well versed in this. So the way you change this is this drop down box. For the sake of this video, we're going to submit it to low, and now you will see the current security level is low. So what are we looking at in here, right? Actually, do you guys want to talk about that now? We could do it. I mean, this video is already over 19 minutes long, so I'll tell you what. I'm going to shut this video down right now. We'll call it installation of DVWA. I'm going to do another video right after this in which I'm going to explain to you what all these things are here on the left side, what the vulnerability is, when you finally get around to it, what's the type of exploit you can expect to do. So I wanted to leave it at 19 minutes, me saying that last thing, it just added on another 30 seconds. So I'm going to stop right here, right now. I'll see you at the next video. See ya.